So first and foremost, I think it's interesting to sort of talk about if or how digital is different than traditional. I think there's a lot of words that are flying around. Long form, short form, mid form is the new long form or short form. So maybe actually we could start with Chris and CBC and what kind of content CBC is sort of serving up and what's working really well on that platform.
Sure, yeah. So the main way that we distribute a lot of our digital original series is through our CBC Watch player, so sort of our version of our OTT player. I think in terms of the fundamentals, they're very similar to linear television in a way, compelling stories made by really skilled writers and directors, capable producers. So like what we're looking for in terms of pitches is quite similar that way. Where it differs is obviously in form, so we're not restricted by the 22-minute or 44-minute form that you have in television. And then also there's a bit more opportunity to take some creative risks. So whereas obviously on the linear side, it's much more broader audiences that are targeted. There's a lot more opportunity to get niche, do stuff that's a little bit more creatively risk-taking. But I mean, when you're looking at sort of the pitches, obviously it's story, characters, all the sort of core fundamentals of what you're looking for a great linear property are still there.
So, Ali, when you're working with creators and you're looking to take them across multiple platforms, do you see the same thing, or how do you see how you have to change or alter content to make that work?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the vertical of content. So at BBTV, we definitely work with mostly content creators that are creating short form content. And we see some content like food content or kids content, whether it's short form or long form, it can thrive across many different platforms. But with other types of content that are very niche, you're seeing it'll only have success on specific platforms. And so if it's short form content like gaming, beauty hauls, it'll do really well on YouTube, but it won't necessarily translate on other platforms.
And Jonas, for the StoryHive platform, you work with creators who are starting either with even just one-off short form and then going to long form. Do you see a difference between, for example, scripted and unscripted when you're working with creators?
Do we see a difference? Yes, I guess. Yeah, the answer is yes. So typically what we do is we give out grants to filmmakers. This is a large part of what we do, give out grants to filmmakers to make their short films. We actually we don't really see ourselves as a film funder. So we don't really want to fund films, actually. That's not really our thing. We want to create filmmakers. And so the films are just a means to get there. So we typically give out $10,000 to often emerging filmmakers to kind of make maybe their first film. And so often that is a little shorter because it's $10,000 and it's emerging. There's only so much time they have as well. So the length that you're asking about is kind of a little bit sort of dictated by the budget that's available and by the experience level that the filmmaker has. In terms of scripted and unscripted, we see probably more scripted projects now. It's changed a little bit. It used to be a lot of documentaries that people were wanting to pitch, but now I think there's so many great stories that want to be told. People make up so many awesome stories that they want to tell. We also see a lot of, which I really love, is we see a lot of actors now. Just in our recent StoryHive edition, our latest funding guidelines, we see more and more actors now writing their own roles. And I love that. I love that, just to take it in your own hands as opposed to waiting for that call, waiting for that casting, or waiting for that callback. To just say, you know what, I can probably do that myself. Mayumi was here this morning, she might still be here. That's exactly, I think that's exactly what happened with her. She had really an acting background and through StoryHive. She wanted to write her or tell her the story, but she also wanted her to see herself on the screen, and I think that's awesome to allow that, the actors to do that.
That's amazing. Emily, is that part of Seed and Spark and enabling those new voices and new creators?
Yeah, I would say that I think it's interesting to draw a distinction between digital and traditional because nothing isn't digital anymore, whether it's the actual production technology or the marketing. Every single, my husband and I joke, we don't call it content in our house, we call it content. Because it's become we need a word for something that encapsulates short, mid, long form and all that stuff, but we've come up with just a really catch-all lame word, so we're trying to make ourselves content. as creators. We're content creators. I think everybody has to come to work differently now. No matter what your end game is, whether you want to be making Marvel movies with the giant studio or you want to be making short form, if you want an independent, sustainable career where you don't have to ask for permission in order to make your work, you have to build a direct connection with your audience, and that will be through digital channels. So I would just be wary of too much of a distinction between those things, because the path to a career now is built through leveraging digital channels and a certain amount of expertise across storytelling platforms. And when I say storytelling platforms, I mean Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. These are all authoring tools for storytellers, and also just for like people to connect with but for storytellers, these are very powerful authoring tools to build direct connections with your audience. And what we try to do is provide the next layer for those tools. So we provide a lot of education to help content creators. I'm gonna see if I can make it a thing, guys, so help me out here. Really understand how to leverage those storytelling tools to start to build a direct connection with their audience. And the next layer that we provide is leveraging that for funding and gathering essential data. And we don't want filmmakers to be afraid of data, because ultimately, if you're using the internet to promote your career, you're kind of an internet entrepreneur, and internet entrepreneurs live and die by their ability to really understand their data, and the data says something about the efficacy with which you're reaching your audiences. So we provide lots of layers of data for filmmakers who crowdfund with us, so they understand where their audiences are, how they behave, what social media platforms they like, so that they can make smart and efficient marketing and distribution decisions. And obviously, we leverage that data in aggregate to help us program our own OTT apps. You guys, I just don't want to make any assumptions. OTT, over the top, like Apple TV and Roku and stuff like that, linear channels like traditional cable. I just don't want to make any assumptions, because somebody said linear to me like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, what does that mean? And then felt really stupid for not knowing, but I didn't want anybody else to feel that way. So I feel like we really see ourselves kind of like an incubator, right? But it's really open source. We're providing a tool set, and then we're trying to deliver a superior experience for audiences who are really interested in diverse creators, diverse stories, diverse perspectives. And the difference on Seed and Spark is that for your subscription to our streaming apps, you also get to vote on 12 projects a year to receive funding. So you become kind of part of that incubator network.
Cool. Meredith, how do, it's interesting because you work for Scripps Digital Studios, which are sort of the digital arms of what are traditional linear television services. So how does your role and how you work with content, how is that different than your partners on the other side of the hall, I guess?
Good question. So, in the last 6 months, year, even maybe like 2 years, I think like the other side of the hall is getting like closer and closer, right? So, to your point, everything is digital. And, we're such a large number of networks and, organizations coming together to produce content.
Yes!
Under one roof. Thanks. So I think it's like those initiatives are getting closer and closer, and I think that's probably something that we'll see more of, especially from traditional linear networks, right? As marketing dollars are shifting over to the digital sphere, there's more pressure and expectation to create content for digital, promote it there. That's where brands want to be. So I think the other side of the hall is just getting like super close, and we're all doing the same thing, which is cool. I like that. The other thing that's happening is, we're all sort of going after the same talent, right? So like there used to be like talent that was like, they were TV talent, and then there was like digital talent, and now it's sort of all the same thing. And I think this actually sort of dovetails back to something that you were saying about sort of like creating your own brand. So like we're obviously looking for talent that we think aligns with the brands that we have, but also sort of, has their own audience footprint and their own brand, and they're doing really cool things on their own. And then we're like, hey, let's do something together.
And the more you know about your audience that you have gathered, the more data that you have, the more valuable you are. The part of the reason that brands all want to go to digital is because the depth of data and the actual trackable ROI, that the return on investment that they can see through digital channels, which like you still can't if you just put a TV ad up. Right? And now that it's possible for brands to get really, really specific drill down data from digital content, they're really eager to align themselves with creators who really know their audiences. And that is just, while I know that probably some people in here immediately like sell out around branded content on the one hand, on the other hand, it's a great way to make money to make the really weird shit that you want to make. I think the weirder your stuff is, the more commercials you need to be making.
I think that's super true.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, I feel like Ali, that's something that BBTV has been way ahead of the curve on for years, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, back to the digital traditional, like we don't even see a distinction at all. I mean, you have YouTube who's launched a television service. There's YouTubers that are appearing on TV, A-list celebrities that are in digital first production. So that line is just going to continue to blur. And in regards to the branded content piece, absolutely. I mean, with creators, like it's really hard to create a digital first production and see ROI with the monetization models right now. So the only real way that creators are able to kind of get over that, one of the ways that they can get over that barrier is to pitch it to a brand or pitch it to a platform. And we're starting to see these platforms invest billions of dollars in content, and we're going to continue to see that happening. And same thing with brands.
I think there's a big change in who creators are, and I don't think it's a generational thing. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are. I think we're at an interesting time where audiences now, and I am going to put like an age thing out there and just sort of say audiences under 25 or even 30 maybe, they consider themselves creators as much as they consider themselves consumers. And so as you're creating stories, it's about allowing them to be part of it. So I kind of want to ask Winston about this. So Winston, you've been an internet creator for many years, and so maybe you can tell us a little bit about the evolution of things have changed for you as a creator in the last even...
Just in a general sense?
Well, a little bit, and then, you're here partly because you've actually just launched, well, a year ago now, I guess, People Watching.
Yeah. Can you give me a bit more?
Sure.
Sorry.
So, from talking to you, your background was that you've been creating in lots of different ways, and that you had a webcomic,
Yeah.
right? And you'd been working with a platform called Cracked, I believe. So Cracked has, was it 17 million monthly?
Yeah, something like that. And million YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, and that's 17 million YouTube subscribers is half of Canada's population. I mean, I think that's the other thing, is that as digital creators, it is somewhat borderless. Even though Chris is here from CBC, Chris could tell us a little bit more about CBC and its reach. But as a creator, so you've been working with Cracked, and as a creator, you're not only going to work on one thing, hopefully, because there's so much content to make.
Yeah.
So how did People Watching come about?
Okay. Yeah, I've been doing a comic strip. I've been creating content for 10 years or something, and yeah, the lesson of the digital space is basically whatever you make, it's you putting yourself out there, and then the trick is just to keep yourself out there until people find you, until you basically get fans who are the editors of a website or have some other power to help take your career somewhere else. So a long time ago, Cracked approached me because they thought my work was a good fit for them. And then many years later, when I was again approached by someone who wanted to do a web series because they liked my work, because they'd seen it, then the existing relationship with Cracked allowed me to approach them with the web series. So that's kind of how that evolved. It's just yeah, it's just a matter of existing online in a consistent way until you get a phone call, and that's always been my experience.
Hold on real quick, because I appreciate your characterization of it, and I want to reframe it quickly, because I think this is where some people get confused. How many comics did you make over what period of time?
I think a couple hundred over 10 years.
Okay, cool. So this is a person who was generating massive amounts of creative content consistently over a really long time and slowly gathering a fan base, right? And it took that amount of time before the phone calls came in, right? So I always want to push back anytime I feel like it's possible somebody could be like, oh, I just need to wait for the phone call, right? He wasn't waiting for the phone call. He was making stuff and 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 generating a lot of stuff. And if you go to Hollywood and you talk to the agents about why they call someone, and it's like, I want to see generators. I want to see people who self-generate, who can make stuff no matter what, and who aren't waiting for someone to make stuff. And so the phone calls came on the back of a decade of work. So I just want to make sure we underline that, and that you don't undersell the tremendous dedication that it took to get to where you are, because I think the mythology is still very alive that we have to just, do our work and wait to get picked. And you're not. You're making your work. And if they pick you, great, but assume they won't pick you and that you're going to be responsible for building your own career and using the digital channels to do that.
Yeah, that's an extremely good point. Like I wasn't expecting to get contacted by a website. I wasn't expecting someone to ask me to do a web series. If that had never happened, I would still be making something and making a living that way. So, and yeah, I mean, I certainly am prone to underselling my own efforts. So, like, yes, it's a lot of work, but it's always worth it, and you will never regret putting that time in. So.
And we should point out that People Watching has been winning awards, including a Rocky Award at Banff this year, right?
Yeah, we actually did win an award.
It's
So that was
award-winning.
good. That was good.
So I think part of being a creator now is also, it's about building, it's not really just about telling a film or a short film or a web series. It's you're building brands. It's a personal brand, and it's a brand for your content. Jonas, how, as a career accelerator, as you described it, I think you mentioned to me it's a little more focused on mid-career and more emerging career. So how are you helping them build their brands as storytellers?
So traditionally, story has been very much part of the journey of an emerging filmmaker. So we were really looking at people that might not make their first film, but they make their first film with some real money. And we meet everyone who we give the money to. We do these workshops, so we meet them, and a lot of them the sparkles in their eyes. $10,000. They're so amazed they're going to have all this money, and then we meet them like 4 months later. They're like, oh my God, only $10,000. That experience is a critical experience to have, right? In this case, we're a filmmaker, we can just apply the same to really any artist, but we're talking about filmmakers right now. So enabling someone to have that experience is for us, it's a privilege to be able to do that. So this is going back to this sort of the emerging filmmaker. And then more recently, we've also been doing a lot of research, talking to a lot of filmmakers about kind of what can we do to help their career. And we had this interesting. I remember one focus group actually, where people talked about the sort of the beginning of their career journey and how there's a number of programs that can help, including like a film school. Like we may be part of that. And then there's also this sort of maybe the sort of pinnacle of your career. You're doing an HBO show or something. And then they were talking about the middle bit. Like what's happening in the middle. Like, you don't work with CBC yet. You've done some shows, you might be doing some corporate work, you might be even doing this sort of full time, but you're still in that place where you're not quite sure how can you get to that HBO show or that thing that you really want to make that's also really gonna pay for your mortgage. And that's what we decided we want to step in as well, to kind of get people, we used to get people from sort of here to here, this is awesome, but what can we do to help them go this is still an evolving process, and we just decided to give up more money, so that seems to help, so people can have a even bigger, can create a bigger body of work. I'm not going to use your term right now. A bigger body of work, which they can then use to pitch themselves, position themselves, and use that brand. You know, whether it's their personal brand that they're building, their personal brand as a filmmaker, as a director, as a producer, as a writer, whatever sort of their thing is. Or they can often they would develop a brand for that specific project. So it might be a project that they sort of develop, in essence, develop with us, even though we don't technically call it development funding, but people can use the money to make the thing that they make, and then use that to sell it, or to, you know, maybe that's a pilot, maybe that's a treatment, maybe that's a first episode, whatever they want to do, to hopefully get people into the next step.
And Ali, at BBTV, one of the things you do is you help spot that talent, that raw talent, or somebody who might be succeeding on one platform, and then you help them launch in a much bigger way. And hopefully we'll circle back, but to monetization, right?
Yeah, so I mean, we look at creators in different buckets depending on kind of the stage of their careers that they're in. And for smaller creators who at this stage in their career, they just really want that exposure, we try to build kind of technology and scalable tools that allow them to kind of make intelligent decisions on how they can deploy that content and make sure it sees success, whether it's with the keywords they're using, titles, metadata. And so they can focus on the creation, we can try to help on the technical side. But once a creator reaches a certain level of traction, whether it's their subscriber base or monthly views, we look at how we can help them take that IP and monetize it in different ways. So we've built business units around developing like custom mobile apps for them, merchandising, book publishing. And so once they do have that really successful piece of IP, there's so much more they can do with it. And so that's what we focus on. Yeah.
So Chris, part of the CBC is Canada's national broadcaster, but you also work with a variety of experience, right? And actually, Meredith too, I think, you know, you have traditional film and TV companies coming to you, new and emerging digital creators. What do you want to see when somebody comes to you? And then what does CBC do with the content? Like, what are you going to do with people watching? How are we making Winston a global name?
So
no pressure.
yeah, exactly. All right.
He's already award-winning.
Exactly. So another piece of what we have is the CBC Creator Network, which isn't like an external-facing brand. It's more about exposing or identifying talent from across Canada and exposing the opportunities within CBC. So I'd say what's a bit different is we're not really looking at sub counts or at sort of at how popular those channels are yet. We're kind of looking at, you know, do they have a POV, what kind of unique voice they have, and do they fit potentially with what our audiences are across our different verticals, so whether it's lifestyle or whether it's comedy, and just trying to identify creators that we think would be interesting to work with. We learn a lot from them as well, and we're just, because often what we'll do is we'll do collabs where they're launching on their channels, we're providing, we have a large platform with Canada, so we'll also launch on our verticals as well. But then also sort of looking at like how do we then also expose them to opportunities across. So we've got one lifestyle creator who's now appearing on The Goods on television or doing a podcast pilot. So how do we kind of bring them in and be able to expose them to other opportunities across the organization, or even just sort of amplify what they're doing. Or, you know, again, we've got some who are creators who are kind of focused in one specific space, and they're doing more sort of one-off videos and things like that, but they want to get to series, so it's just introducing them to the right people. And the one thing that's been really good about CBC lately is that we've kind of knocked down, talking about the walls getting closer in the hallways, is that, you know, when you're pitching at CBC, it goes in front of the same room of people who are lighting any series. So there isn't that sort of digital linear divide. It's a comedy room, it's a factual room, it's a doc room. So that helps a lot, because then when something is coming in, you know, it might be pitched as a digital series, but it's going in front of everyone, and so there's an opportunity for it. We're thinking, okay, well, where could this live? Where should it live? And yeah, we're seeing people who are now kind of having a broader reach across all of our network in a variety of different verticals. So it's again, exposing the opportunity and just kind of having people just open some new doors.
Meredith is drinking, but I was going to ask her
sorry.
the same thing. So is it very similar for you at Scripps?
Actually, yes. So we also just launched Scripps Lifestyle Experts, which is sort of like our group of premier experts in our spaces, so food, home, and travel primarily. And those are people that we're looking to work with more and more in lots of different ways, looking to pitch them to advertisers, get them on our linear channels. I feel stupid saying linear now. On our traditional TV networks. And to a certain extent, sort of finding those specific people that can maybe work in all places, right? So that people that are popping on our digital channels, but we can also ingratiate in with our traditional television networks. So we'll work with our programming executives to get them, guest spots on some of our popular shows, or judging spots or things like that, so that we can get our audience used to seeing them everywhere. And then, we also publish our content everywhere. So, we publish it on our social channels, which are gigantic. We really appreciate people that have their own existing social footprint too. So that makes them more just interesting to work with, more appealing, right? If you come and you say, I have 100,000 subs on YouTube, I'm doing this. I think we could, together we could do this thing together that sort of spawns off of what I'm already doing, things that my audience already likes. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I had something else I was going to say, but I kind of forgot.
Can I underline something that you said so they're doing something as a corporation?
Yeah.
As a corporation that actually individual creators can learn from, that I think is really important. You're talking about kind of building a story world of characters, right? So you have these shows that are already popular, and in order to build new IP, you're bringing in these new characters, introducing them to the existing audiences, and then broadening the total spectrum, because those characters you're bringing also have their own audiences. You guys can be doing this together, right? So every single one of you, if you're out there in your own storytelling voice, building your own brand, you can start to collaborate and introduce each other to one another's audiences. I learned this recently.
Yeah, that's very smart.
In fandom communities, there is an entire shadow market of Instagram influence for pay. So somebody who has a particular influence with a particular fandom community, somebody who's up and coming in that community actually offers to pay for an Instagram post, and it's all happening offline. There's a really interesting startup in the US who's trying to coordinate this. That's the only reason I know about it. But basically what that says is there's a tremendous amount of power to help one another. If you guys are each sort of deeply investing in your own brand growth, whatever that means for you. It could be 1,000 followers or 2,000 followers. You don't go crazy, because you start to set the sort of $100,000 person threshold, and it feels impossible. But really, the intersection of 5 or 6 creators working together on stuff can really help grow the brand. So you would be creating a sort of little mini corporation on your own, and that can empower the growth for all of you. Does that make sense? There's a really interesting example in the US. There's a company called Black and Sexy TV. They were one of the first kind of, let's call them, I hate using the word niche, because I think it has been used to marginalize groups that are not actually the margins, because women have been a niche for a long time, and that's really absurd. But they basically were look, we know something about how the African American community consumes content online, specifically on YouTube, and they launched a channel with a couple of banner shows, and then they used those shows to introduce new characters, and then spun out shows based on those characters, and they built a 10,000 person subscription service, which is now delivered on its own OTT channel, and now they're making that money to make more stuff, and they make a sustainable living that powers 6 or 7 people and dozens of shows, and is launching the careers of tons of creators. And they just did that by being very deliberate about the creative world in which they were building. And I feel like there's an opportunity for lots of us to replicate that as a format.
And just to add, in our world on YouTube, almost every single big YouTube creator right now in the space got big because they collaborated with another YouTuber. It's extremely common practice, and when their viewership goes down, they'll just find another creator to collaborate with, and they can get it back up. And so at BBTV, something that we do is we try to foster that collaboration. So we took one of the artists we work with, Logic, who's a rapper, who's a big gamer, and we had him play video games with one of our top gamers. And it was a great way for them to kind of tap into each other's audiences. And we've seen cases where musicians like Major Lazer, who we work with, allowed all of the creators across our entire network, 100,000 plus, to use their music in their videos and to be able to monetize that. So it's just a really quick and easy way to ensure that your content can reach new audiences, and it's extremely effective.
And I was going to say, in the digital space, your community isn't just who like lives in Vancouver, for example.
Yeah.
It's more who shares your audience or shares your interests, and it can be really surprising. And that's where we can come back to data a little bit, maybe. And so that's something that I think is really currency in the digital marketplace. Is there's value, like you've heard subs, you've heard likes, you've heard views. What are some key things so everyone here, like this is the amazing thing about digital platforms, is with the exception of, Chris at CBC, who's awesome, you can just call him. You can go on YouTube and you can make a video. But the way to build on that audience or learn from it is to embed metadata that we've heard about and key tags, but also to be able to track and learn about how to sort of analyze that. So if I or Winston were to go out and make a video, like what would be some of the things you think that we need to start thinking about from day one, beyond just story and character, which fundamental, doesn't matter if it's traditional, digital, doesn't matter if it's 140 characters on Twitter, you need a voice, right? You need a character and a personality. So beyond that, what are some of the things that you think that creators need to keep in mind?
We touched upon it in terms of consistency, because as creators, there's a tendency to just really be a perfectionist. You want to make sure your content meets kind of your standards, and really in the digital space, to be able to iterate and put that content out there and see how it's doing, and then make informed decisions about what to do next is really important. And I'm sure that's why he's made, part of why he's made hundreds of episodes, because you learn a lot based on what's working and what's not working.
Jonas, is that something that you, from the get-go, work with your creators on?
Yes. One thing, this is sort of touching on something, Marsha, that you said already. We really feel that this new world, which is not new at all, it's been 20 years, but this digital world that we're in right now, it used to be different, everyone, but it's so awesome and empowering. It can be empowering for those filmmakers, because exactly to your point, you can just make your own thing. You don't have to wait for a callback from CBC or from HBO or from someone else. You can just make it yourself. You can. That's awesome, good news. The problem is, you can't just do it yourself, and everyone can. And you sort of, if you want to do this for a living, this is all assuming you want to do this for a living and make money. You're competing with a lot of other people, and so the awesome things you can do it. The other thing is everyone can do it, and you're competing with everyone. Building your own audience and building your own, whether you want to, you said community already, or your audience, whatever you want to call it, that is the key thing you want to do right from the get-go. First time when you think about, let's have your own audience. In the digital space, you might just do a thing digitally and get lots of views and make money with it. That's a thing. That's what BBTV is so based their business on. That's a wonderful thing. That's really awesome. You might want to go down that route. You might want to work together with someone like CBC. When you can show that you already have an audience built, it doesn't have to be big. It depends on your piece. If you can show you have an audience already, and you go to a meeting, that's a very different conversation to say like, hey, I made a thing. I made a web series about going to conferences. That's fun. It's a fun idea. But if you can show that, and there's already 100,000 people that are interested, that is so empowering for you, because suddenly when you have these meetings with people, including myself, actually, it's a very different conversation where suddenly it's like, oh, there's already you already have the product. Keep in mind, in media, the product is not the content. The product is often the audience, especially when it's advertising supported. When it's like a advertising supported TV network, old school. CBC is a bit of a different one, where say like a CTV. CTV doesn't monetize the films or the content or the news. They monetize the people that watch it. So the audience is the product. Now, keep in mind, it's not the only way to go about it. There's lots of different ways now. So for a lot of parts, the audience is the product. So if you already can show that you already helped build some of that audience, that is very, very powerful for you, and it really puts you in the driving seat.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about something that's maybe a little uncomfortable here, which is if you're making something, you better ask yourself why. Why am I making this? And that's really about what your end game is, okay? And the more honest you can be about what your end game is, the more success you will have at achieving it. If your end game is to make money, you have to do things that will help you make money. If your end game is just to tell a story that's really personal to you, that's fine. Probably do it really cheaply, right? But if your end game is to make money, then you have to be able to prove that there is an actual audience who will spend money, or who a brand will spend money to reach through you in order to make that thing. And that's not diminishing the creativity of your art in any way. Because the why question, why am I making this? It might be because there's a massive audience who's been underrepresented, who I'm going to bring representation to. Or there's a massive subject that hasn't been tackled that I am planning to tackle. And so even if your end game about making money, it can be for like social advancement, social good. It doesn't have to be, but you do have to prove that there's an audience that wants to see it. That is part of your work as a creator. And that gets really uncomfortable because I think this sort of, we have this notion that when we're successful, all we get to do all day is create. And I don't know anyone who does that, who doesn't know a shitload about exactly who they're making stuff for and is really good at communicating it such that they get those people on board, they get those audiences on board that they can bring to a network or a brand. This is your work to do also. You don't get out of this if you want to actually make a sustainable living. If you just want to make stuff, that's fine. Either have a rich uncle or just do it really cheaply. I don't ever want to advocate against art for art's sake. I think it's really important that that stuff gets made. But this is a commerce panel here ultimately. And I think that part is just, we have to underline it.
Totally. I actually think, and I've come to a couple of the industry panels over the last couple of days, and I think that traditionally there was sort of like a stigma against bringing a brand onto your content and allowing a brand to integrate into your content or having an end card or whatever it is, right? But I do think that stigma is sort of fading as it just becomes a larger and larger business model. And the way that I look at that, because I actually, I produced original content before I made a move into branded content, and I actually ended up getting the position because a couple of other people didn't want to produce branded content. They just they didn't see it as, to your point, like creating art. And the way that we look at it is basically we want to come up with these ideas and tell these stories that we would tell anyway. And we get to just make them bigger and better because we have more money to do it. And yeah, sometimes there are compromises that you have to make, and I heard this in the previous panel I sat in on just for a minute, and it's sort of just about figuring out where something is a concession that you can make and where it's not. And being just a little bit less precious about what you're doing and keeping in mind what the main goal is, right? A lot of times when we work with a brand or we work with an agency, we try to create what is this North Star so that we can always go back to it. So when somebody suggests an idea or things get sort of off the rails, we can be like, hey, actually that doesn't really align with our vision. Let's try to find something that maybe accomplishes this goal that does align with our vision. But yeah, I don't know. I personally think the stigma against working with brands is diminishing. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely tend to agree with that, and I think as long as the creator of that content is a part of that conversation with the brand, then it helps to diminish that and ensure that, because nobody knows the audience more than the creator, and that's where things can kind of tend to go wrong, where the brand, the ask that's coming from the brand just wouldn't resonate with the audience, and so you need the creator to be at that table, a part of that conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think. So yeah, you need the brand to feel like it's genuine, right? It's organic, and we just had something come up where we're creating some content around a gluten-free product, and one of the talent that they were interested in was I love gluten so much, and all of my social channels are just overflowing with it. So yeah, I could probably do this, but I just don't know why they'd want me to. And we were like, yeah, that makes total sense. This isn't a good product for you. And So I think, yeah, it needs to be organic to the existing brand. Otherwise, no one's going to care about it.
Well,
It's
and
going to
you
just
can
feel
do
disingenuine.
You can do damage to your relationship with your audience. Like there is actually a version of selling out that will do damage to your reputation with your audience. Like your audience is relying on you as a certain kind of tastemaker, right? They're following your unique lens on the world. That's your brand as a storyteller. And so if you do not feel authentically aligned with the story that you're telling and the way that it's being told, or the ethics of the organization that you're aligning with, like that actually does matter in the end. I mean,
It's
I
very
hope
true.
it
Yeah.
matters in the
Yeah,
end. Your audience is relying on you to also stay true to them, and they do. I mean, just as you said about the iterative process, like they are co-creating with you over time as they grow and develop and evangelize your brand as a storyteller, telling their friends about it, getting them to watch stuff. So when you do bring a brand into the fold, if they feel like they're being taken advantage of, they'll smell it real fast.
I think that's why you start to see almost like adjacent content too, so that creators, especially YouTubers, they stay more true to their channels and the kind of content they're making, but then they'll work with brands to do additional content where a lot of times they're very plain about it. They'll say, I'm working with IBM or whatever on this thing. And then, as you said, they have to stay true to brands. I know, Corey Vidal, I think he worked very strongly with like PC-based products, so he would never advertise Apple, for example. So I think to circle back to, let's call him Chris. When a creator, let's say they've established themselves somewhat, they have an idea or a notion, and they want to come to the platforms, I think it's pretty clear that you have to come with a greater understanding than just, here's my story and here's my script. So what else, and we can start with Chris, but everybody else, what else do they need to come to the table? We've talked about maybe social influence in the background, but what other elements do they need to think through when they're coming forward with an idea, either to a brand or to a platform?
I mean, some of this was mentioned earlier. I mean, I think back in the day, it used to be the old school producer would kind of come and say, oh, what are we doing this year, right? Like, what's the show we're making? And now it's very much like there are no guarantees. I mean, you do have to show a level of understanding who that audience is for. Like before, we would often get that sort of, what's the demo you're trying to reach? And that doesn't really resonate as much anymore. It's sort of more like, what's the story that you need to tell? Who do you want to reach? What is that idea of just sort of coming to us, asking for specifically like what's that target demo you want to hit? It doesn't really go as far as maybe it used to before. I think creatively, if you look at creative collateral, I mean, it really depends. I mean, again, like it's sort of understanding what that story is you want to tell. Like if it's scripted, getting a sense of sort of what are the beats, what are the characters, if there's any video that's been shot. I mean, like we take a wide range of collateral. But in terms of like understanding the audience, I think it's a really big one. I think even just understanding some of the other pieces that have been on the platform. So being familiar with what other stuff's been lit up, what else has been there, and having a sense of what works for that platform. I think that's helpful to know what we have done in the past.
So how do you find out what's working for a platform? So how do you know who their audience is?
Well, so for them, typically, I mean, like a lot of the ones that we have actually done on the scripted side, they've typically come out of creators who started on YouTube and launched a series, and so they learned a lot about their audience, and they had built those communities already, and so when they came in, they already had a season 1 or a handful of episodes, things like that, or they have experience already, so they understand who that audience is, which was very helpful out of the gate. And then for what we've done, I think again, we don't really ask the creator as much to understand what's working for us, but just to be familiar with the type of content that so if you understand sort of what the broad range is on CBC Comedy, or if it's life, or it's a doc, just understanding the kind of things that we're looking for. We also, we have a website called cbc.ca/IP, which is our independent producers website, which has a ton of information about the type of things that we're specifically looking for at any given time, and that's always a helpful resource too.
Can we talk about the how really quickly? Because I don't want to be too cavalier about like, yeah, just go build an audience of thousands and then do some research and then come to the CBC.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of unfair. at the moment that you have the idea in your head, the log line, whatever, start thinking about who's going to want to watch this, right? And it might start sort of with you and your friends, but what are the elements of you and your friends that really inspired this idea or make it exciting? And then go out and start engaging in when you're here at a thing like this, start talking about the log line and seeing whose eyes light up. And then find out from them what blogs do they read, what social media platforms do they frequent, who are the influencers who they're looking at. This is all part of the resource and research gathering phase around really figuring out in a real meaningful way who is your audience, because there's the audience that you can imagine and then there's ones you might not even know that you're going to inspire. Now you guys probably have incredible deep data on this and like can watch it happen digitally, but when you're still at like the nascent stage of the idea, some of this research you'll have to do on your own. You'll start gathering images and going on location scouts and doing like the stuff that you do to build a story world anyway. And you can use these authoring platforms, the social media platforms, whatever is appropriate for you. If it's an activist thing, you probably want to hang out on Twitter, right? If it's very image-based, Instagram, Facebook is really like a video sharing platform at this point, trying to compete with YouTube in certain ways. And so really using those platforms to test some of these things out, test out images and videos and participate in the like Reddit communities that are talking about the subjects that you're bringing up. You have to become a participant in the communities that you actually ultimately want to serve. You can't go in there with a bullhorn and be like, "I've arrived and I have things for you. Everybody, look at me." Like it won't work. So this is a coalition or community building process, and it takes a lot of experimentation. And I'll just tell a super quick story. I have a friend, Alex DeBranco, making a series called The Distance. He crowdfunded it on Seed and Spark for the pilot, or actually to shoot the series after they'd made the pilot. And the pilot went to a ton of festivals, like digital series festivals, Series Fest in Austin and South by. Did a really good job. It's about a long distance relationship, and each episode is actually 2 episodes. One is his perspective, directed by a male director, and her perspective, directed by a female director. And you get to choose which episode you want to watch first, or if you could watch her entire thread or his entire thread if you wanted to. Alex is really funny, and his personal social media is absolutely hilarious. But when he started making the distances profiles, he's like, I'm good at this, and I can't like figure it out. And he came to my office and we went for ice cream, because I think that's where the best ideas, it's either the shower and ice cream are the 2 places where best ideas happen. And we went for ice cream and we were just talking about sort of like kicking ideas around. And I was like, well, there are tons of long distance relationships out there, and nobody's like asking them what their tactics are. Or like, what if you became the resource for long distance relationships? And sort of like a place to discuss things. So he started experimenting across platforms, and he discovered that long distance couples are the fuck on Instagram. Holy smokes. And it's #LDR. And it is about, getting together at the airport and leaving at the airport, and don't you hate it when, you miss the Skype call, and like all of this stuff. And he went from, a few hundred followers on his Instagram to a few hundred comments on every single post in a matter of weeks. And that was just through experimentation and kicking some ideas around with friends. So I just really want you to, and you don't think, the long distance relationship community is not a demographic. It spans demographics. You could never say it's women between the ages of 24 and 35. Like, it is completely demographic-less in a way. It is an interest group, and interest groups gather on the internet. That's kind of what the internet was built for. So really, like, leveraging the tools and iterating is a super important tactic that is in your arsenal, and you just have to get creative about it. So I just wanted you guys to have like some actual like tactics.
Yeah, I think a key word is authenticity, right? Because the consistency thing, it's about having an authentic relationship with your audience and being authentic about who you are. And that comes back to the brand thing too, right?
And one other thing to add is that it's just not something you can do alone. So as you're going through this process that she talked about, hopefully you're finding others that are super passionate about this piece of content that you want to make, or whatever it is that you're getting behind, because you're going to need a team to be successful, and everybody can play a role to help drive whatever you're working on forward. So it could be your social person, it could be your BD person that's going to help you do the meetings, it could be your creative person. But it's really important that hopefully as you're engaging in these communities, people are wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's an extremely important point. I mean, as a creator, to work at the indie level, as I'm sure many people know, is to wear a number of hats. And eventually you find you can only get so many hats on your head. You know, I'm good at 7 different things, but there's, certain key other things I'm not good at. I'm not good at the social media things Emily's been talking about, kind of networking with other creators, stuff like finding where your audience hangs out, stuff like that. Those are things you definitely have to build a team around, because I'm sure all these people will tell you there's obviously a lot of creativity necessary to write something, but I think there's just as much creativity needed to get something out there. They're 2 big areas, and you can't do it all yourself.
So I think we have a few minutes for questions. Does anybody have a question? Or I can ask somewhere. Oh, look, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Hopefully we get time.
Is this on testing? I'm wondering what everybody's doing in the horizontal.
So
Is
like
it-
9
I'm just
by
kidding.
16.
I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I was like, in bed?
They're
Sorry.
Like, oh my God, I don't know that. Question for the CBC. Given budget constraints for every country in the world on arts and culture across the board, what sort of partnering do you look at in terms of relationships and strategic building with, say, the BBC or Australian Broadcasting Corporation or whomever? It's, there's 7 ways to cut the apple kind of thing. What are you doing in that spectrum?
We're doing a lot of that. I think if I kind of carve it out on the smaller scale projects, we're looking to actively work with other partners. We're primarily have been focused on the Canadian audience for Canadians. So obviously, but a lot of our stories will resonate. What producers are bringing to us resonates globally. So even just looking for a lot of our larger titles, we got a couple going with Netflix right now. We have something with Comedy Central. We have something coming out with ETN. So on the larger scale productions, we're working a lot as well with BBC and with some other partners around the world. Even on our smaller scales, we did some stuff with CISO, with Hulu. So there's a lot more opportunity for those kind of partnerships. A lot of the time, producers are bringing those to the table. They're out there actively shopping things around. Sometimes we will also be aware of what our partners are interested in as well, and we'll sometimes sort of shape what those deals could look like.
I was just going to say, and we're very lucky to live in Canada, because when it comes to funding for digital content, there's actually support here. So
Yes.
look into CMF, the Independent Production Fund, tax credits now on the federal level, depending on what the structure is. We talked about brands. StoryHive is here. There is a lot of support, because I think there's a recognition that content on any platform and reaching Canadians in different ways is important. And I think you're going to see even some of the more traditional players moving that way too, because I think content is content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next.
How is digital first content like BuzzFeed videos and cooking videos translating into the traditional TV space?
I have a good example of this, I think. So Food Network makes a lot of like the top-down food videos that people really love or really hate on the internet, but they definitely start a conversation. And so what we're seeing more and more on our networks is that content being broadcast either in ad space or in like bumper space before or after a segment. So we're taking content that we're producing for potentially for brands, right? Or not for brands, and then we're also publishing it on our linear network. So you'll see it the same way you would see a commercial, and then they'll align it with whatever the series is. So if you're watching like Halloween Wars or something on Food Network, you might see like a really spooky recipe video to like lead you into the commercial.
And for us, we kind of look at the audience behavior and we kind of look at, is this going to be browse behavior? Is this the kind of thing that's going to roll through the feed? As I'm waiting for the elevator, this is more meant for my social feed or something on cbc.ca versus a watch type of behavior. I want to watch something, I'm going to lean back and spend some time with it. So we're kind of focused on, is this more of a feed type of browsy behavior, or is this a watch, and then program it accordingly, really.
Sorry, she'll come to you next. Yeah.
Hi, this is a question for Jonas and StoryHive. So we've talked a lot about social media and how important it is to build our brand and create content and stuff. And for Jonas, he had mentioned that StoryHive is more about emerging filmmakers and giving them a shot and a chance. And I know that there's 3 parts to it. So there's the voting, there's the social media aspect, and the jury. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about who the jury is, because it's never revealed on the website, and how they're chosen. I know in the last round, one of the teams that won had 0 posts and less than 5 followers, and it was just kind of interesting. That's all.
So for everyone, just for some context building here, so when we make funding decisions for StoryHive, so there's a bunch of people apply, and then not everyone can get money, because unfortunately we don't have enough for everyone. That would be the better solution, right? So that's the real solution, we'll talk about it another time. And so there's sort of, there's 2 components, 3 components, I guess, to it. There's a sort of audience engagement, and that gets done through voting, as well as through the social score. So the projects, we're asking them to get votes, basically. And there's also a jury that sits down actually afterwards. That's very important for us. We sit down afterwards once we get all the votes and get all the information, we sit down and make the funding decision. We really love voting. It's a powerful one on a number of levels. So I mentioned earlier, because it essentially forces the creators to build their own audience, right? So we kind of, making it a condition, you have to build your own audience. But it also really helps the people in the jury to be aware of projects that maybe that wouldn't be on our radar. Like every single time when we sit in the jury, there's like projects that wouldn't have, for whatever reason, wouldn't have resonated with us. And it could be a number of reasons. And then we see that at the top of the voting list, and we say like, wow, we really would have missed that. If it wasn't for the voting, we probably wouldn't have wanted that, because the thing didn't work. We felt that something was like this. So the voting is really powerful for the filmmakers, but also really powerful for the people in the jury. The other reason why we have the jury, as well as the voting, this is not a popularity contest. There's a big misunderstanding, and I get it, because it looks like we're awarding money based on popularity. We do not do that. It is your audience is part of the decision making that we have. And then in terms of the biggest problem with the popularity contest is, of course, the potential. Luckily, right now, it's a potential lack of inclusion and diversity on for the winner. So that is a very, very big consideration for the people in the jury room. For us to say like, okay, this is great, here's the votes, here's and what's not represented. And sometimes, not often, not all the time, but sometimes, if it's a certain group or a certain issue, it could be a certain region, that group, that region, that issue might just be smaller. So therefore, they might just have fewer votes, because it's just, it's only 4 still. So that's where we really want to have the jury. The jury is, that was the other question, right? Telestaff as well as industry experts. We do not publish the names of the people that are on the jury, kind of out of. We don't want them to get like beforehand, in it, right? It's kind of, this is sort of easier for us to say, we just kind of, it's industry experts that we want to publish actually the past ones. I think that's probably the smart thing to do. To just publish who was in the jury before, so you kind of know who's on there. But it's people in the industry, which, by the way, if I have one more minute, it's really awesome for us, because we, as a StoryHive team, kind of get to know everyone else's input. Someone from CBC was on the jury before. Yes, I've revealed it just now.
Wasn't me.
But it also gives that exposure, and the filmmakers don't even know that exposure to the filmmaker, to that person. And I do know for a fact from the CBC, I do know that there's conversation happened afterwards, because of the fact that she or he from the CBC was in the jury, and there was conversations afterwards. Long answer, is that good? Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I'm being totally off track because I think we're standing in between you now and lunch. So I want to thank the IPF who've sponsored this session, and just so you know, they also work the same way because they do a similar thing. One thing we didn't get to that I think is interesting, but we talked about a little bit beforehand, was this notion that there is one big difference in the digital space, which when you're coming to the funds or even the platforms, very often you need to come with a proof of concept in hand, something about who you are as a storyteller or what this story is that you want to see. But a lot of and some of the programs, it sounds like StoryHive and IPF do this thing where they make it publicly available, and then there is a view count, but it's the exact same thing for IPF. It's not a popularity contest. They do look at your ability to engage your audience and engage your community, but that is an opportunity to build on it. But they look at many other factors too. Anyway, but mostly I wanted to thank the IPF for sponsoring this session and thank all of you for being these great panelists. And I think most people are around, and thanks to the audience.